Call. Do I do that? Okay. Mr. Aliano is absent. Mr. Ellis?
Present.
Mr. Insua? Mr. Simonian?
Present.
And Mr. Yu?
Here.
Okay. So now I'm just looking at something here real quick. Check him. I just want to. Okay. Very good. Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on January 9th, 2009. Excuse me, April 9th. Where am I?
I was just.
April 9th. It was posted on April 9th. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The board may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The board may refer the matter to the proper department section for investigation and report. And I don't believe we have any oral
I don't have any
communications.
cards.
Okay, I have not received anything either, sir. Review calendar. Okay. Staff announcements. I see we don't have any staff announcements. Consent calendar. I see we don't have any consent calendar. Our first case on the agenda, which is DRB 1 PDR 2009. No, I don't know. 2009-020A at 1317 Virginia Avenue is not going to be heard tonight. Was taken off calendar?
Continued.
Continued. Project was continued, so we're not going to be hearing that first case today.
Right.
So we need to make a motion and all that good stuff?
Yes.
I'll move that we continue PDR 2009-020A to a date certain,
Are we
2
doing
weeks?
April 30th? April 30th, sir.
to April 30?
30.
Okay, so April 30th.
I'll
We
second that.
We have a second by Mr. Simonian. And roll call, Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Simonian,
Yes.
Mr. Yu.
Yes.
Very good. Now we're on to design review cases for our next case, as I can see here. All right, here we
Thank
go.
you, Mr. Baxter. Thank you for
All right,
filling
sir,
in.
here we go. All righty.
Now you're going to put on your second hat, right?
Now the second hat. Where's my little pointy stick? Oh, here it is. Okay.
There it is.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the board, project that we're reviewing today is on one panel. I think you all have the photographs. I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to
I'll
review
take a
them.
look at those and point out to the side.
I'm just going to follow through the staff report kind of briefly, answer questions toward the end there. The project case number is 1 PDR 2007-137A, first time submittal. For final review, project is located at 321 Mesa Lila Road. The applicant is William Twynham, and the owners are Tom and Stella Hamilton. Project is two parts, really. Let me just show you real quickly on this. Do a little walk around the property. We have our site plan and Mesa Lila Road. We have a topography that gently slopes down, as you can see on the photographs. Then we have a bit of a flat area through here, and then it slopes down behind. There's a blue line stream. It's a dry creek bed, but under the city maps, it's identified as a blue line stream. Many oak trees, and over here we had an oak tree study that was done, and so we have a listing of the oak trees. I noted that in the staff report. We have the mitigation measures that were reviewed by the oak tree people, the urban forester. Also, the state, I'll look it up here. The state also reviewed the fishing game. Thank you, sir. Fishing game reviewed and commented, and I think I gave you a letter on that in your staff report about the blue line stream at the back. So they did comment on it. Wasn't the best comment, but it was the comment that they gave it.
They basically ran out of time.
If you read the comment, you go, huh? So, but anyway, nevertheless, that was the comment that they gave, and so this,
Side commentary.
yes, this was resolved. This is resolved, and now what we have is a garage from a previous addition, not a part of, associated with these applicants, previous owners for an addition back here. In fact, you can kind of see what went on here. And as part of that addition back then, this was the existing garage, and it was approved with the plans as an existing garage. But somewhere, at some point thereafter, before the present owners, this was converted to a master bedroom. So what we have now is we have to create a legal floor area here. So that's part of the reason why we're here. And as a result, they have to create a garage. And so that's why we're looking at this right here. They have to create a garage here. And then they want to add this small little studio down slope, because as I mentioned, this slopes down the hill a little bit up to this blue line stream. If you look in the photographs, there's actually a nice photograph that kind of shows what it looks like right here.
Yeah.
When you look from there, the middle one, I believe, is it. It's a nice photograph that kind of gives you an idea of the downhill slope. The building that's out there now is an existing shed, tool shed out there. That's coming down, but that gives you the approximate location where the garage is going.
Was that permitted also? Or?
No,
That
I don't
was
think so. I didn't see anything. But no little tool sheds. Now, the existing house was constructed in 1952. There was this 699 square foot addition in 2000 that was completed in 2006, and now the applicant's coming in to legalize the garage, and build a new one, and add the studio. When we look at the project in relationship to its neighbors, this is a relatively large lot at almost 20,000 square feet. The average in neighborhoods around 8,000, though it does have a range of up to 22,000. The setback for this property, it is showing to the front house from the street is 20 feet. There seems to be an average of about 23, though that also has a range of 16 to 35. House sizes, actually the floor area of the studio, the 300 square feet, is added to floor area. And so the floor area we're looking at is that in the house is the 3,063 square feet, but it's not, well, anyway, that's a 3,000. The average in the neighborhood is 2,300 square feet.
So it's 3,000 square feet, including the previous garage, which was later converted to a master bedroom?
That's correct.
And plus the new studio.
Correct. Yes. Okay. So the studio and that garage, this converted garage, the studio below, and this is 3,063. Okay, so if we go through and look at the highlights for our site planning, our mass and scale, we look at our design. Under the site planning, the proposed project, we felt it was fairly consistent with the overall neighborhood. The garage is at the rear of the property. You drive down the hill to the property here. It's been located among many oak trees, but that's been reviewed by our urban forester. They've given some conditions, mitigation measures where they feel that works fine. It's pretty far off the blue line stream and up the slope a little bit. It's pretty much far away from there. And so we felt that's consistent with the guidelines. The mass and scale, we looked at that. We felt also that it was not inconsistent or that we felt it was compatible with this neighborhood. Didn't see any problems with that either. We also had only a couple of comments relating to the architecture, and that is this back wall we felt was a bit bland here, so we were suggesting either some minor articulation in a wall face, but mostly windows, maybe some windows back there. That's what we were really thinking, rather than anything else. I did talk to the applicant, who is Mr. Twynham, the contractor designer, and he felt that shouldn't be an issue to put in a window or two back there. And so then those are also turn up as conditions, or certainly one is a consideration, one is a condition. Pretty much concludes my comments, and I can answer questions if you...
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
The house, when I went and looked at it, I mean, it's a very nice looking house down in the front.
Yes,
I'm a little confused, though. It's a hardy clapboard on the front and stucco then on the side. Is that, I'm kind of wondering, the coloring and the rendering doesn't match what I saw out there. Is there a change happening, or is it just more, the artwork is not,
Here's
That's
going to be
the-
the stucco color. here.
so it's stucco, they're not matching any of that hardy board type on the project? Okay, that
The
was the question.
applicant can give a little bit more.
Okay. I'll wait for, give them a chance. One other question for you.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me a little bit on code? What's the difference between a habitable second unit or a guest house as opposed to
Yes, sir.
extra space? And my reference is the bathroom and the sink in the project in the
Down here.
proposed studio.
Yes.
What's the next, when does it become a unit as opposed to a?
Yes, yes. Okay, first of all, because this project is really connected two ways. One is this dimension between this wall and this wall is actually 4 feet.
They don't have the minimum.
So they need the 5 feet to be a separate detached. So they're, one way, they're not detached. Another way they're not detached, they're going to have a little covered roof so that they can walk from the garage here without getting wet. Okay? So they're attached. That means they can't have a second unit. Now, they can't have a second unit even if it's detached. And what makes a unit is a cooking facility, a kitchen. So you can have a bathroom. Say, for instance, let's say this was detached right here, greater than 5 feet, and let's say it was flat and it was tucked out here, and you could have your guest house back there where your teenage kids or your in-laws or somebody live
Right.
out there. You can't have a kitchen in it, though. Kitchen is cooking facility. So you can
Right.
have the bathroom.
You can have
And
a bathroom.
You can have the bathroom,
Okay.
you can have the sink, but you can't have the kitchen.
Okay,
And that's the legal definition that we look at,
okay.
the kitchen. In a roundabout
So
way.
do we
because of
consider
what-
this attached or detached?
This is attached. And one of the reasons why they have their 10-foot setback is because it is attached.
All right,
So all they need is a little roof to be,
No, they actually have to be greater than 5 feet to be detached. So if they're less than 5 feet, they're attached.
Right.
And the roof also attaches them. When this was first submitted, this dimension wasn't clear, and so they put the roof over it so that it'd be attached. There's the issue of the overall height.
I thought it had to be an enclosed space that attached and not just a roof.
Now you can have a roof.
Breezeway, right.
Yeah.
And then now their total height starts down at the lower grade and goes all the way up to the pitch of the house.
There you go, sir.
Right.
See, for instance, Mr. Reed, let's look at this. Let's say you wanted to, yes. Let's say this garage, you wanted to put this garage right on a property line and call it a detached garage with nothing underneath it. Let's assuming this is a flat lot, and you put the garage right on the property line, which is allowed with no accessory building attached, no studio, nothing, just a garage. It could be done. And then they say, can we attach it with a covered patio so we don't get wet? We would say no. So this could be 15, 20 feet away. As soon as they put it over here with that attached, it becomes attached to the house.
Okay.
It's a kind of a strange little thing. People have used it either way to make it work or not work,
Right.
depending on their situations. But no, it does not have to be enclosed. Anything else, John?
I know, thank you.
No. Do you have any other questions?
I think I might have questions. Is any portion of the existing building being renovated or touched upon?
I don't believe so as part of this application.
Because in the pictures, it was hard for us to get to the rear of the building.
Yes.
But in the pictures, it seems as though the windows and doors might be a little bit different than what's depicted on the elevation. So
Okay.
as far as is that an applicant question, whether...
That's a good one. If you notice one of our conditions, our second condition, we talked to the applicant. In fact, sir, let's do this here. We have, let's look at page 2 here. And this is kind of some photos of, he's showing of what the existing window is. I think it's aluminum, wood clad, something along that line.
This is-
Anyway, so we talked to him about it, and he said he wanted to have things match what's out on the existing house.
Okay.
But he can go into more detail on that as well. But we put in a condition to make sure that there's consistency within the window system out there.
Is this going to require piles for this retaining wall that's going to be built here? Do you know?
Oh, sir, I don't know. I think, let me look at the, while you were working with the applicant, let me look at the mitigation measures to see whether that, maybe the applicant can also address that too.
And is there any chance of that blue line stream ever going through a flood, 50-year flood, 100-year flood, whatever that?
That's a good question. I didn't take that in consideration for the DRB analysis. I think the Fish and Game looked at that to see whether there's going to be any negative impacts, but they said no.
Their comment was they didn't have time to read it.
Yeah, they didn't have time to read it.
Pretty lame comment.
They wanted to look at that, though, but they
wanted to get to it.
Yeah.
You know, be perfectly honest, if there wasn't a time limit on it, they'd sit on it for months, and that would be so unfair to an applicant. You know.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why the application is taking so long.
Waiting for those guys? Yeah.
Part of it,
Part of it,
not all
yeah.
of it. Some of it is some other issues.
To your knowledge, do any of the neighbors at the rear of the property or sides of the property, could they see the rear elevation of this property?
I'm sure they could, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not the most, it's not going to be the most visible in your
Right.
face. But yes.
Yeah.
If you look here in that photograph, that second photograph on the second page, that's actually pretty much standing just on the other side of the stream. But I actually walked back here. So you can see the edge, the near edge of the stream bed right here.
Right.
So when you crawl up the hill, excuse me here, let's go over here. So there's that stream bed. So when you walk up here, you're pretty close to the edge of the street. Now, if you'll notice, this is not at the street here. You have, this is the property line back here. Then there's a little bit of an embankment, not very high.
That's the street I was talking about.
Yeah, back here, a little bit of an
Part of that
embankment.
lot.
But
That's what was
this
confusing
is
me, okay.
this is separate right here,
Yeah.
where my the pointer's
Yeah.
covering a separate piece of land, so it doesn't have direct access to this property, the street. If I'm not mistaken, it doesn't have direct access.
I drove around on Winding Woods, and I mean, it's clear. It's probably the most visible part of it, I thought, because the house is well hidden, you know, behind the house, but that was the most visible spot.
But there are trees and shrubs, and
Yeah,
I kind of
right.
walked up, and it's not like it's
Right.
in your face.
No.
It's kind of-
Absolutely. I would agree with you on that. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter.
All right, John.
Okay. I don't have any cards with me, but I see some people in the audience. Is there anyone that wants to speak on this project that maybe didn't
Did you fill out a speaker?
fill out anything?
Oh, go ahead.
We do it maybe afterward, and
Yeah.
make sure we get
Would you like to speak first? Okay. If you could just state your name and your address just for the record.
My name is Bill Twina. My address is 9515 Hill Rose Street, Shadow Hills. I'm the applicant.
Okay.
To answer one of the questions, the garage and the studio will have the stucco to match the house.
Site.
matching
Yeah.
the house.
Yes.
No, but no siding at this point.
No siding,
Okay.
yeah, but it would be same color, stucco
Okay.
finish. The stream, it'd have to be a major flood for that stream to impact this project. It is
Yeah.
way down below and quite a distance. So I don't think that would be an issue. And Chris pretty much covered everything else, I believe. If you have any other questions, I'd gladly answer them for you.
Oh, yeah. Do you plan on building a retaining wall to support that bottom studio
Yeah,
area?
there'll be retaining walls involved in that, correct. On the bottom, the rear wall of the studio underneath would be a retaining wall, yeah.
And have
And
you-
the sides would be retaining also a portion of the soil.
And have you obtained a soil report for it, and have you looked into where the bedrock is? And
Oh, yes, yeah, we have both the geological and the soils report done.
And what does it say? How far down to ground?
Oh, I'm sorry, I really, I couldn't give you that information right now, as far as the soils report goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are the stairs going to be concrete?
The stairs will be concrete, yes.
And do you have any material or cut sheets for the garage door and also the windows that you plan on using?
The windows are going to be an aluminum window that matches the existing house. And they're white aluminum. What was the other question, I'm sorry?
The garage door.
Oh, the garage door. We really haven't selected a garage door as of yet.
I noticed on the plans it says they're vinyls. Is that,
You know, I got to tell you that I think they're vinyl, aluminum coated with vinyl. It's not clear-cut aluminum or vinyl.
or vinyl?
Yeah.
I don't know if such a
Coated
material.
You know something, I
exists,
got to
sir.
tell you, I've been dealing with windows for quite a long time, and it's very difficult to tell whether they're aluminum or
Right.
vinyl.
That's kind of why we always like to see do you have the sheet with the windows or what's proposed?
Did you do any studies to go to a second-story studio?
Well, the reason why we put the studio below is because the garage is cantilevered out over the edge of the slope. Otherwise, that would just be an empty space. It would just be the foundation for the garage. So rather than just waste that space under there, that's why we're putting the studio there. And
Well, the location of the existing shed right now
yes,
is directly adjacent to the existing garage, right?
it is
Further
back.
back.
It's pretty much very close to the location of the new structure that we're planning to build.
I think on that,
Because it looks pretty even in the back.
I think the oak tree map may show it up there.
Proposed, it says proposed. I don't,
Proposed, but where's the
Look to the
existing?
left of it up there.
is that something house or tool house it says?
It's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot bigger than
It is
that.
bigger than that.
Right.
yes.
Yeah, 'cause
But it's somewhere in that general
right in
vicinity,
this
yeah,
area,
yeah, yeah.
and it's going back a little bit. Yeah.
Because see, the way it's sitting right now, this is the front of it.
Yeah, it
And
does
so
look
it's
like
probably, I mean, it's probably a little bit behind
Here's
that,
the
which
edge
is
of the
here.
house, right?
The
Right.
garage will
But
just
when
be
you look at it from the
deeper.
back, I mean, it doesn't come out that much further.
No. Yeah, that is a little weird, isn't it?
Well, the existing
Maybe
shed
it's only-
doesn't come out,
maybe it's
but
only
the
one
new
wall.
location
How much more?
certainly is popping out.
Yeah, you could. Oh.
So I guess my question would be, I mean, you know, obviously, the reason you needed this space here was to be able to get into the old garage.
Right. But now you could
But
pull
now,
it
if you
forward.
pull this forward and attach it, I mean, do you have enough room to maybe go straight in and then you know, turn around?
There's actually a large oak tree that's in
here?
the driveway area.
Yeah.
But do you still have this?
That's this one, right? This tree,
Correct.
which is based there, number 5,
Right here, okay.
36-inch diameter. It's behind the house, though, right? Or is there
No,
one?
there's one right here.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
this
there's one in the
front.
driveway.
Number 3,
Could you still get in there?
16-inch.
Still get in there.
Yeah.
Just because that's a large cost. That's a huge retaining wall to create that little space back there.
Well, it also creates quite a bit of bulk on the other side.
It's almost worse than the two-story if you were to go up on there, yeah.
This landing detail that you proposed with the 4x lumber and then the decomposed granite,
Correct.
it's really the only detail that you've provided. Could you tell us a little bit about it? What was so significant about it to point that out as opposed to a cut sheet on the garage door and windows and so forth?
Well, Chris requested that we address that, and we just wanted to do something that would blend into the landscape without, rather than have concrete, we thought something more natural.
Natural.
Yeah, so that's why I figured the decomposed granite would be something that would be viable.
The driveway, are they not redoing the driveway at all, or that?
I believe the driveway's going to be done at a later date with maybe paving stones. Because of the tree roots, they cannot put concrete
Right.
on top.
Right.
So was stucco always the first choice for material in the back to match the side of it? There was no thought about trying to match the sort of the character of the front of the house?
In the front of the garage, you mean on the front of the garage?
Well, the entire new unit, I guess.
The house only has the siding on the front.
Right,
The sides, the back are stucco.
right.
So the garage front has mostly door, because the garage door takes up most of that area. And We just thought it would just be more, it would match better the house if the sides of the garage were the same as the sides of the house.
And the reason okay, well, we can go into it further, but it's just because the back of it is pretty prominent, like you were talking about from the back street coming in, and it's almost like a front, almost view from the back of it. So I was just wondering if there was any thoughts of maybe doing something with the back.
To be honest with you, we really never discussed that. It was always using stucco.
Because, even in that elevation, it's
Yeah, it's definitely
pretty
a big
prominent.
No, like Chris had mentioned, we're more than happy to put a couple windows, maybe 2 windows on each side in the back there to break up that stucco a bit.
Stucco.
Okay.
Do you plan on touching the existing building, the rear facade, let's say, of the existing home? Do you plan on replacing windows, color, anything like that?
Okay, not really. This house has just been remodeled within, 3 years ago. Totally, it was a large addition put on the house. The entire house was just recently remodeled. The only change that is proposed to be done is on the old garage that was since converted, to put a slider door in the rear of that, where now there is a window, which I believe is shown on the rear elevation there.
That here?
Yes, exactly. There's a window there now.
Right.
And they wanted to take the window out and put a slider door there, which is shown there.
I noticed when I was out yesterday that there's a blue tarp over one part of the house. I'm wondering if there was anything going on, It looked like, this end looked like it maybe was under some kind of renovation or something. Is that maybe a question that the owner wanted to...
Maybe after him.
Yeah, okay.
One more quick. What's the existing overhang on the existing house?
The overhang, what, the eaves?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. They're not large eaves. I would say maybe 16 inches, something to that effect.
And I'm assuming you're going to match them on the new one, or is
Yes, exactly. We'll match exact.
Okay, because your rendering is kind of off on...
And one thing also, I don't know if it makes a difference now, the breezeway or the little covering, I don't know if you guys would mind if we eliminated that and did not have that connection with the roof cover going from the garage to the existing house.
How does that affect it, Chris, on the...
I think planning's interest is that there's a height issue. So it's measured from the lowest part of the garage to the highest part of the roof pitch. And I think anytime it's connected, has a connectedness to it, it's better.
Without it,
What
there's
did you
still
say?
that, I think,
I know.
may I paraphrase you?
Okay.
Without the breezeway,
Yes,
it's
I know.
still one unit.
Yeah, it's still one unit.
Okay.
Right,
It's
okay.
it's still one unit, so I guess technically you could do it. But it's just, see, if they move, the problem is if it moves out any more than that, and it becomes that separation.
Right.
Then it becomes a separate unit that exceeds the height allowed
For an outbuilding,
for
basically.
an outbuilding.
Gotcha.
It has
So
to
it needs to be
15
connected.
feet. That was another reason for trying to connect that thing,
Right.
because it becomes a separate building, and the height cannot be less than 15 feet. That cannot
Can't be
be
greater
more
than-
greater
greater
than
than-
15 feet.
Okay, but technically it's still considered one building
Yeah, it's
because
considered
less
one
than
building,
5 or 6
technically.
feet. Okay.
Less than 5 feet. It shows
Okay.
4
Then
feet
I
at this
think-
time.
It's up to you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering, the reason just cost savings or?
Well,
or you just-
I think it might just look better without it, to be honest with you.
I agree. Kind of clumsy looking, yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, and if you could fill out the
Card.
card
Okay,
for us.
thank you.
So we can have it on record.
Here, Bill.
Do you have a card, or do you want to fill it out after? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Please go ahead and come up and state your name and your address, just for the record.
Thank you. My name's Tom Hamilton. I'm the owner, 321 Mesa Lilo Road, since January of 2006. Just some clarifying responses to the questions you had. Concerning the windows, they're low E squared Energy Star rated windows. Milgard are the ones that are in the house now. So there is an issue between it being vinyl or aluminum, but they are Energy Star rated. As far as the blue tarp, I believe that's on the back of the house.
Yeah, I saw it from,
I put it up there because we have 2 dogs when it rains.
Right.
So that's why it's up there, and I take it down when it's, so that tomorrow I'll take it down because we're not supposed to get any rain.
All right.
I think Bill addressed the issue related to the studio, is because it's cantilever over the hillside, that we did look at trying to do it 2-story up, but because of the height restrictions, it just made sense to do it below where the space was there and take advantage of it. Other question, as far as the tool shed, that was there when we bought the house. I put a different roof on it just to protect some woodworking tools. But it's about the same location, it's just that the existing tool shed is about half the depth,
Right,
is
Gotcha.
what you'll notice is the difference. So,
Were you aware at the time that you purchased it that the master bedroom had been converted without a permit?
no, and we're in litigation now with the sellers.
We just have to bring that up.
All right. I'll get to that later. Okay.
So as far as a clarification, the Milgard windows, are they aluminum or vinyl, the existing ones that are in the home?
I think as Bill had said, was that it's sort of a combination. We have, I think, they're vinyl, as far as I know.
Combination meaning some are vinyl, some are aluminum?
Aluminum clad. But they're all new. They're all low E squared.
Okay. Is there any way to breaking it down 50-50 on the aluminum and?
It's probably like I would say it's probably closer to like an 80-20 aluminum.
Also the
Or
aluminum
I'm sorry, vinyl.
vinyl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I don't, I think.
And I could, if you want, I could get the U factors or the solar.
Yeah, no, it's actually the frames have become the issue, not the glass in them. You know.
Well, then I could get you the
Yeah.
solar heat gain coefficient if you want. I think they're
Well,
a
the
3.8.
coefficients, I mean, they're pretty much just, there's a certain minimum that most of the new windows will have that we're not
Right.
worried about. It's more of what the look of it and what the future of the windows and those kinds of things.
Right.
So. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else out there that would like to speak on the project? No? Okay. Then we'll close. You do? Okay.
Well, you want to,
You'll have to come up and, it's just because it's being recorded, so we have to
Do you
speak
have the
into the
speaker
mic.
card, ma'am? Okay.
all right.
She's prepared.
Thanks to my husband.
If you could state your name and address for the record, and then.
I'm Patricia Lawson, and I live next door at 311. We have no problems with this, but we would have problems with a second story.
Okay.
I like it underneath, and it's not going to look that bad. And as far as the flooding,
That's your house?
yeah.
Okay.
Since 1975, we've had the big rains and the little rains. It has never flooded over, the point of harming the garage where it is. And knowing Stella, she will plant the front of that garage so you'll never see it if you want. She's quite a gardener.
Front of the garage?
Nice looking lot, yeah.
Any other questions? We have no problems with it.
No, we don't have any. Do you have any questions?
No,
for
ma'am,
her?
no, sir.
I wish you approve it because we'd like to see it being built.
Great.
Thank you for coming in. Then with no further comments from other, we'll close the session and we'll discuss.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I'm glad that Mr. Baxter and the applicant kind of clarify some of the issues, because I have a real problem with legalizing illegal construction, after the fact. It's not a thing that in Glendale I like to see happen. I mean, in my neighborhood, I've seen it come around. And so I initially was inclined to not support doing it and asking them to go back and reconvert let's start over at the beginning and work it back. I now understand from this conversation that these are not the people who were they're seemingly more victims than perpetrators. With that being said, I think the changes on the rear facade would be in order. It is pretty plain. That is the one side that the public can see. I know the neighbors aren't going to see much. I think the neighbor who is here will probably, so it'd be an improvement over what is on the lot currently. It's a great looking little house. I was impressed when I went up to look at it, and I think I'll kind of defer back to you guys because you have a little more professional eye. I could see having some siding on it at some, along that front, but I realize the conversation. I think the cut sheets on the garage and stuff are something that staff probably could handle here. I'm also a little concerned with a second unit, but I think Mr. Baxter kind of covered that, where we are with it, and I'm accepting. So deferring back to what your comments would be, I would be willing to support with some conditions.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Simonian.
Starting out with the general location of it, I'm a bit perplexed as to why is it here and why is it not maybe here? Don't know. I mean, there's some oak trees, and it seems as though when I'm looking at this plan, I mean, it's within all of these strip lines, anyways. And I know the urban forester looked at it, so, we got to go with his assumptions that it's safe. And so if it's safe there, it's going to be safe here. Because there's less of an impact on the drip lines here, let's say, than there. That being said, I'm a little bit, just have questions about the location of it. And, just looking at the colored elevations, they're not architecturally accurate. It's kind of hard for me to get my arms around it. A no-brainer and just really pops out as just the bulk and mass of this thing. So I think that's something that I think we're going to have to discuss, and I think that really is a function of its form. We have this studio that's being kind of pushed in there, causing that mass and bulk over there. I'd like to see a cut sheet on the garage and the windows. I think that's the least that needs to be at least provided, so we understand what parts of the original building they're matching and whatnot. That garage door is going to be evident from the street. We have this ranch, which predominantly is more siding anyways, horizontal siding. And I think it would be a nicer choice of materials than the stucco. So I'm not ready to support this project as presented. It just has a lot of questions for me, and that I think if they're solved, it certainly will help, the applicant and the owner. They'll end up with a nicer product than what's presented. So it's almost like we owe it to the neighborhood and them to at least make sure we understand correctly what's being proposed and they understand what they want to build. There's going to be quite a bit of earth movement to get that studio in there. They are carving up that little bit hill there, so that is going to be a cost factor. And so the positioning of that studio being carved into the earth is certainly a question that pops up. I always like to stay away from blue line streams. I'd like to stay clear of them. The reason it's called a 100-year flood, it happens every 100 years. And it might not have happened for the last 25, 30 years, but it might happen. Who knows? So those are my general thoughts and ideas without really going a lot of detail into it. So I'd like to see what Mr. Yu has to say as well, and then we could see what routes to take on this one.
I concur with you in a lot of the things that you said. When I first got the packet, there was a lot more questions, I guess, than answers. And I went down to the site today, looked around, and it's a great area. I mean, the neighborhood is great, and you're sort of, sunken a little bit off from the street, so you get this privacy, that gets created. And then I didn't get a chance to go to the back of it, but from the pictures, I mean, with the area where it actually, the house, kind of comes down to the lower area, and you have sort of this whole planted area that you see with the trees growing off of it, I think, and then the pathway that was created that goes down to that area, I mean, a lot of that's going to be lost because of this new building. You're going to have this sort of two-story mass that just kind of pops out of there. It's going to kill a lot of the quaintness of it. And I guess what I see here is that I see a lot of lost opportunities in what you can do and what you could have there. And so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of contradiction as well of, we're trying to keep the same look of the house to the new, and then your overhangs don't seem to match on the elevations. Your one attempt at creating an area where I guess you're not trying to introduce a lot of concrete, but then you're introducing a two-story element in that area where it's all foreign to that area, and so it's. And then you have things like, I mean, even the roof pitches of the existing to the new garage, they're not matching. I mean, they're slightly off. So those kinds of detailed things that would actually make the project really good just are not there, and it kind of worries me. I think the choice of material is it could be better. I mean, I think there's especially since you have the precedence of the siding in the front. Why not use some of that? Cost-wise, I mean, it's a pretty even. When you're talking about cost-wise, that retaining wall is going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot to do. And so I don't think it's a cost issue of why you're putting it back there. It's cheaper than it is to do something else. I don't think that's the trade-off for it. And so I think you're right. I want to just. I'm not ready to say that I'm not going to support it. I mean, it's in the back, and I understand that it's not going to be seen by everybody. But still, I do have some concerns about the issues that you brought up, and so maybe let's start discussing it. I guess.
I just noticed as you were talking that there's a window in the studio that's presented in 3 different versions.
Yeah, there's the.
Along the staircase
Sort of bathroom-looking window, and then there's an upper one.
So there's here, there's here, and then there's nothing on the.
As far as the studio is concerned, I mean, there would probably be ways to do a one-story addition to get the garage, and the studio without going to a 2-level at all. You could pull the garage, closer to the street, and maybe do it that way, or maybe have a little bit of a deck. So it's hard to get our arms around it. I'm having a hard time even, looking at the plans, elevations, and the perspective, because none of the drawings are matching. So it's hard to assess what we're approving and
so
what
if
we're
you
not.
pull it up and then just add it to the back or something even, and just have a deck maybe that comes out, or And I guess I'd feel better if he did come up and say, hey, we looked at those things, and
These reasons was the right approach or was not.
It seems like maybe the designer just started off with the whole idea of that's where the shed used to be, therefore it has to go there. And
I have a couple of questions as the board deliberates. I guess I'm curious because we've heard a little bit about questioning the location of the new addition, and then there's a discussion about the two-story nature of it. So as you continue to deliberate, we'd like you to be maybe a little bit more clear on what your preferences are, because we'll be continuing potentially, however this goes, we'll continue to work with the applicant. And as you saw in the staff report, what we do is primarily weigh what the building looks like in relation to its neighbors, and if there's 2 stories in the back, what's the visibility like? So just so that you know where staff was coming from on that point. And the way that we assessed this particular addition, while 2 stories is unusual for the area, we thought, well, you may be able to see it from the street if you got out of your car and you looked for it, but maybe less noticeable if you're just walking your dog down the street, that kind of thing. So those were some of the things that staff took into consideration, and we'll hope to be able to use your guidance to work with the applicant either way you go tonight.
Even the floors are like 10 feet.
I mean, so there needs to be a study done as far as the location is concerned. Is it possible to do a 1-story addition?
You'd move it closer to the street, you'd get the studio space behind the
Behind the
garage,
garage.
double up there,
Yeah.
right?
And in which case, we're not going 2-story. But just overall, I think, even if the drawings were better coordinated,
Just a lot
that
more
certainly would
information
help
on it,
as
too.
far as understanding what we're talking about. It's hard to, talk about this window when it's depicted differently here and there. It's hard to talk about these railings where they're different here and here. So, I don't know what to say about it.
Just the simple fact of putting the lines to show that it's a different material on the green. And is there, I guess we need to consider, is there anything that they could do for us to be able to send it to by staff? information?
Right, yeah, I think if you're looking to make a change in the location, that's probably something that, would call for a return, for a redesign, as opposed to a,
Or they could bring some studies.
I was saying, there's some other possibilities, this is our
We
best
looked at this
choice.
side plan with
Right.
a 1-story, we looked at this side
Right.
plan with a 2-story, not below but above. For these reasons, we think this is
Right.
the right location.
Right.
But overall, there needs to be a coordination of the drawings.
Right, I can understand that,
And-
definitely. yeah.
And a window survey, so we understand what's existing, what isn't, what's being proposed,
The cut sheets.
cut sheets. And those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, as a process matter, generally continuances are for relatively simple information or details that you would like to have clarified. Something on the level of, study completely different site placement is more than is typically done in a.
Be more of a
Yeah,
redesign.
I understand this is a small project,
Right.
but
Yeah, and in addition, just to add to that, we typically encourage our applicants to settle on one proposal and bring that forward.
Right.
If there is something in specific you'd like to be studied, we would, of course, follow that direction. But to ask the applicant to come with several different options is something that we've moved away from here.
We have, I guess bottom line, I just don't think it's the right location for it. So what I'm trying to do is help them.
Well, that is the most important information for us to know, and so what we're hearing is that you'd very much like it to be more aligned with the front house, and that a potential for simply a ground floor or all one-level addition is the preference that we're hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah, it's just going to kill that whole back area. Jeez. Well, for us to be able to send it with conditions, we have to have
Well, I mean, they just got to get an
Which is three
architect, and the
sets.
architect's got to work
So-
this out, and we just, the set is just not coordinated is the biggest issue I'm having. I'm having a hard time understanding the location of the windows. They're not matching the plans, they're not watching the elevation. So for us to give you direction, it's almost like it's a disservice in a way, because if I don't really understand what's being presented, because lack of information, it's hard to give you guidance. But overall, I think the placement of the addition, to me, does not seem to be at the right spot. But that said, there certainly is a lot of information that we need that is not here, with the garage doors, with the windows, and so forth.
Okay.
So I guess the question is it just, I think it's more of a redesign than a continuation. So it's a
Yeah,
return
it
for
sound- that's what it sounds
redesign.
like, yeah.
And I'm not sure if we need to give, or I can't give more direction than that. So if there's other board members that want to give more direction, I'd be willing to entertain any motion that comes up.
Okay.
You want to make one? I mean, because I would say, I see where you guys are coming from. The conflicts in the plans are definitely an issue.
I don't remember the last time we approved a set that had so many holes in it.
Yeah, right, right.
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I have lots of comments. I've been jotting down lots of thoughts.
Okay.
If you want me to, I can just kind of go through and read back thoughts that I have, much of what Stephanie had mentioned, and then maybe we can kind of tighten things up from there.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and do that for us?
Okie dokie. One of the issues is the consideration for relocating garage. I had written down as consideration, but we can make that stronger language. The bulk and mass of the two-story studio wall and garage is a concern for the board members. Additional information for all the drawings, because there's inconsistencies between them. So additional information on windows, that's also important. Some cut sheets for the windows, window sections. Concern about the retaining wall that's going to be supporting structure for the garage and studio. Concerns about the materials such as siding. Concerns that the earth movement, the amount of grading that will be required to tear up that back area to put in a studio. It was the roof pitches are not consistent, so that goes back to consistency. The eaves don't seem to be consistent in the two. So those are a bunch of ideas that I've heard, and I just took some notes down on.
I would say on the comment that you wrote down about the consistency or the information on the drawings,
Yes.
I think they need to, of course, coordinate with each other, but also there needs to be a whole layer of other information that needs to be on the drawings. For example, just basic dimensions of floor to floor, what your,
You're right.
overhang dimensions, call out of materials, a legend maybe that shows that, just basic stuff that,
Right.
Well, Mr. Baxter knows, I mean.
yeah, no, he knows, but I just want to
I
make
was
sure
going to
that it's.
mention one of the things about this project. It came in October of 2007 before story polls, and before we hired our staff members here who are architects and our latest procedures. So we've been operating off of that. Now, I was going to mention that if the applicant comes back again, if that is the case, which is fine, I mean, if that's the situation, if that's what the board's going to require, and they still propose 2 levels because they would require story poles. They didn't need it before because their application was submitted before all those requirements, several months before this.
Oh, so this is based on the old?
Yeah, sort of a lot of the
2007.
older DRB stuff, so that's why you're kind of looking.
Is this a return then?
No,
Is
this is
a
the
B?
first
It's an
time.
A.
Yeah, this is the first time.
So they submitted an application, but just weren't able to get all the drawings in.
Well, see, part of the thing was the fish and game. And then once we got Fish and Game comments back, they needed to follow up on the oak tree study. There was some confusion where the applicant thought that they didn't have an issue with the oak trees, and there's a lot of transitions. Parks and Recreation used to be under Bill McKinley. The trees used to be under Parks and Recreation, then they got transferred over to the Urban Forest from Public Works. So all this stuff was occurring while their application was being reviewed by Fish and Game. And the code came in, we got staff, different type of analysis, and so on one hand, we were smacking them with a lot of additional details, and on the other hand, we're trying to help them get the thing through.
Right.
And so that's where we are now. See?
So if it comes back for redesign,
With 2 stories,
What-
or with these 2, a story's technically 3 feet above the street, and of course they're below the street. But when you look at it, it is obviously 2.
would they have to do story polls at
Yeah,
that point in
yeah,
time?
yeah, yeah. Because this the application is now.
Only if it's
Only if it's those 2 stories. If they pull the garage forward like you're suggesting, put the studio behind with the balcony up on that same level,
Then it's a single story.
it's a single story. It's all single story. You don't have that issue.
Now, regarding the Fish and Game, any addition on this site will require for them to be reviewed by them?
Well, that's an interesting thing, because when you look at it, it basically says if you do pretty much the same thing that you're doing now, it's not an issue. I think it's the very last part of that letter. So
Is there a minimum distance that if they're away that they don't have to deal with it? or-
everything with your information is there is the information I
I
have.
don't think they have any distances on here.
Mr. Foy wants to say something.
Yeah, the actual language of the code says that you must provide a temporary frame for applications involving new dwelling units.
Right, well, it's not a new dwelling.
Yeah, it's not a dwelling.
Considered attached.
Story. This isn't an R1R zone, even though it's not R1R, it is R.
If I may, while Tim is looking at the code,
Is this considered 2 stories? If it's that?
yes, it is considered
Because
2
it's from the lowest
stories.
level to the highest level, right?
Right.
Yes, yeah, that's my
Chris read back your comments. I'm going to read them back again with a little bit more detail, because what we've found is that it's much easier for us to work with the applicants if we're very clear on your intent and the detail within that intent. So there's a consideration to relocate the garage with the preference that it's attached to the house rather than, I guess that would be north of the house if it's oriented north up. Yes, it looks like it is. Is that a correct interpretation of your intent, that you'd rather have it aligned with the existing house rather than back in the slope? Is that the preference, or do you just want them to review it and evaluate
We just want
that
to see an
option?
attempt at a different location to see if it will work to be able to maybe not have a 2-story.
If the preference is to not have a 2-story, what we'd like to have the condition read is that it reads in that way, so that the addition aligns with the existing house and is a 1-story addition.
Personally, I think that an architect could certainly design this 2-story and make it compatible and make it work. As designed, as presented, this 2-story falls short of that. Now, could a 1-story be designed that absolutely works and is compatible? Yes. Could a 2-story be designed that works and is compatible? Yes. But as presented, this 2-story doesn't work. So that's my personal take on this. So I don't want to say, hey, this won't go with a 1-story, because I don't feel strongly about it. A 2-story could work.
This one doesn't.
This one doesn't. So that is, I think, my take on
That's
it.
a
at
good
least.
point. Yeah, that's a good
Okay,
point.
so if we rewrite it to read, consideration to relocate the garage in front of the slope or south of the slope for a 1-story addition, or to provide an improvement or an improved proposal for a 2-story addition. And within the same condition, we could also say the bulk and mass of the 2-story garage as presented is a concern. There's a preference for a 1-story addition or a design that would be more compatible with the existing house. Is that right? Okay. Moving on. Inconsistencies in the drawing are creating confusion. Provide drawings that accurately reflect the proposal and are coordinated and consistent with each other. Okay. I didn't quite get what the concern is about the retaining walls proposed. So I just have concern about the retaining walls. I'm not sure what that
That's good
concern
enough.
is.
I think it was more of us looking at it and saying what it's going to take to do this, and to look at it and say, well, it's not like they're doing it to save money per se.
It was a
By
point
doing
of
it,
discussion
yeah.
as opposed to a concern or a condition, so.
Is it a concern about the extent of excavation and the extent of the retaining
Up that way,
walls?
But I don't think we have any.
So we should strike that from the,
Strike it,
okay,
yeah.
so we'll strike that. We heard a confusion or a request that the window material be clarified with window cut sheets. Now, when Chris read off that as a condition, he also included a window detail or a window section. What we're finding,
Don't need that.
yeah, what we're finding is that for single-family houses, that's not a typical service that even a designer might provide, which is actually a little bit of a surprise to us, but it's something that's coming up again and again. So if that's not necessary, we won't include that section as a requirement.
I think we just need a better picture of what's there now, how much of it, and then what they propose to use.
So, no, right, so, looking at the street facade and the sides, they could call out on the existing elevations or on the existing plans, what the existing windows are.
Okay.
Also, you could just write it in aluminum or vinyl, and that way, when we're looking at this new addition, we see, okay, everything right next to it is vinyl, so if this is going to be vinyl, okay. Or here we have a vinyl and here we have an aluminum 2 feet apart from one another. Well, now let's make that vinyl as well, or vice versa. So if they could just identify,
Okay.
because even they aren't sure
Right.
which one is which.
So to clarify the window materials, what's existing and what is being proposed, and provide cut sheets for that. Okay? There's a concern regarding the exterior finish, and we're hearing that siding would be preferable to match the existing house.
At least
Is that
some,
correct?
yeah.
At least in the front.
At least some.
Siding at the front would be preferable to match the house. We're hearing a condition to make the roof pitch and eaves consistent with the existing house.
The only reason I just mentioned that was just because they were saying that they were trying to match the look of the house.
Right.
And so it's not simply of just matching a color and a stucco. It's, if you're going to match the look of it, then there's certain dimensions to it.
Okay. And provide additional information on the drawings, including basic floor-to-floor dimensions, eave dimensions, material call-outs, and other information to accurately reflect the proposal. And did I miss anything, Chris? I think I may have missed one or two.
The garage door, I think there would, that would go along with the window cut sheets and the garage door. And doors, I guess.
Okay, doors and window cut sheets. So is there a preference as to what material, type of garage door that's used? As if we tell them up front, that's what we can get.
I mean, such a personal thing.
So fiberglass, aluminum, wood, all those would be acceptable to you?
I think so, as long as they choose a color that's appropriate to you. Yeah.
Typically, what we see is the factory finish is almost always white. And that's what's also shown on these drawings. Is that, rather than having a color to match the
Yeah.
finish of the house, is that acceptable?
I have no trouble with it being white. I'm crazy on vinyl, but we've already passed that stage in this project. They might consider some windows or something to break up the solid white door. And
Okay. And we also heard if the proposed addition remains 2 stories, additional fenestration in that north-facing wall.
North elevation. Right.
Very good. Did I miss anything, Chris?
No, ma'am, I think you covered everything.
If I could just clarify one point, I've reviewed the language in the code, and we have the ability to require story poles, but it's not absolutely mandated by the code. I will admit that I have not closely read the staff report and looked at the plans, but from your discussion, it sounds more like you're concerned about the way the building is designed as opposed to
I don't think the heights are
trying
really
to
an
imagine
issue
what the
with the
mass would
story
look like.
poles.
You don't have to do the story.
Yeah, I would, yeah, right. Okay.
Because that would be a pretty big burden on you guys, and that's not the intent.
Let me ask you this question. Because this is under the old ordinance, is it something that it can come back, return for read? No, you're shaking your heads. Okay.
Return for redesign is a new application under
As
the
in,
new
okay.
regulations.
Do we have a motion to consider?
I make a motion to return for redesign with the comments and conditions as stated.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. We have a motion by Mr. Simonian, second by Mr. Ellis, return for redesign with conditions and considerations. Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
3-0.
Mr. Baxter took the
Yes,
pictures.
okay.
I'll give these to you.
Yes, sir. If we go through the rest of this meeting, we have approval of minutes. We have minutes of, I'll be glad to talk to you guys in a minute. We have approval of minutes of March 19th and April 2nd. Do you have,
I had one question on the project on Mills Avenue, which was on the minutes of March 19th.
all right, sir, Mills Avenue?
At one point, and I'm sorry to say, I can't remember if it made it to the conditions or the discussion. I know the house and garage were not all painted all the way around. They were a couple different finishes, and I remember the applicant saying, "Oh yeah, well, no problem, we'll take care of that." But was that something that I'm looking back? You guys remember that? Am I the only one?
I need a visual of the
It's the house that was behind the garage up in the back, and the issue that I saw was the garage, which was right next to the Crescento Valley Water, the vacant lot with a well on it. That side of the house, the garage was 3 or 4 paint jobs earlier than the rest of the house. The rest of the house and the garage looked, had been done recently, and my concern was that gets wrapped into the whole package, but. If nobody else remembers that, then I'm fine with.
Well, Mr. Ellis, let me ask you this. Do you see any of the 4 conditions? Does anything would have been incorporated? Would your thoughts have been incorporated in any of those 4 conditions?
Probably the third or the second one, remove illegal trellis and finish the, match the finishes on all sides of the buildings.
So remove or legalize the trellis to the side of the building and you're saying that there's some siding?
Match color. Match color. The garage in particular had 2 different paint jobs on it.
All right, now we're looking here. Let me just, if I may, this is not my project, but let me just go through this with you. We have the first condition, reconsider. Oh, is that? Okay. Reconsider the roof so the hipped roof at the front will become side-facing gable, so that's not the issue.
No.
The second one is this trellis. The third one is proposed door to the porch. That's not an issue. At the corners of the building where the siding and stucco meet, use hardy plank corner trim. It's not part of that one?
At the corner of it was the garage, actually, which I saw.
So is it a new line
Well, see,
item?
number-
Well, I hesitate to go. We may have missed it in the conditions at the time, but I remember discussed it, and I remember the applicant clearly said, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of all that." And
Okay.
So your question is was it our intention that the entire building got painted on all sides to match whatever?
all sides match whatever the finish is on the. And I seems.
Sorry about that.
She might have a memory of
What's
this.
the question?
Yes, ma'am. Question is perfect on Mills Avenue.
Oh, that one.
I don't remember.
I mean, I remember
about the
project.
garage and the finish.
Yeah, the garage, are you familiar with the project? Had two different paint jobs on the garage.
Just the
I think
garage.
he's talking about.
They had remodeled the house and the garage on two sides,
One side.
but the side that faced the Crescenta Valley water property still had didn't match any rest of the project. And he acknowledged it, because I saw that at the same side of the trellis was an issue, and that's kind of why I triggered my mind when I read the minutes that, wait a minute, the trellis was there overhanging the fence in the Crescenta Valley water. I guess, I'll look back to staff, but, if that's something you guys will catch or somebody will catch, at least they follow through.
Yes, ma'am.
And I may just have missed.
Were they going to do anything to the garage?
No,
No, the garage was staying as
this
is.
thing was as is. They were making just the front, it was.
I'm just reading.
Ah,
I remember the project, I just don't remember.
don't remember that, right.
Precise point of the
see, right,
conversation.
yeah.
Yes, I'm reviewing my notes, and then Mr. Foy is getting the application. But in all honesty, this is the way I remember that condition, was to
Right.
remove or legalize the trellis at the
Right.
side of the building.
Okay, yeah, and it may just have been that we discussed it, they said that was okay, no problem, they're going to handle it, and when we got around to writing the conditions, I didn't consider to stick it in, or, I didn't make it an issue at that point. All right, with just that note,
So, what I'm hearing is that there's something missing, and we could potentially add that as a consideration so that we can give guidance, because it sounds like there was something missing from
that may be the
way
solution.
that this the motion was made and recorded.
Right.
So let me reread the conditions. Although you have them in front of you, we've got reconsider the roof, and that I think is clear.
That's clear.
Remove or legalize the trellis at the side of the building. The proposed door to the porch should not have muntins, but should have a single clear light. I remember that also. At the corners of the building where siding and stucco meet, use hardy plank corner trim. So I'm hearing that on number 2, is there a missing consideration regarding the existing condition?
I mean, I don't know how, if we can add in and match the finishes on all sides of the garage.
Okay, so
That
we
would
can
make me
say,
happy.
yeah, okay, so it's a consideration regarding the finish to match the finish on all sides of the building.
Right.
Okay, and that'll be a consideration, and we will inform the project planner of that change as she works with the applicant.
Great, thank you. And I'm ready to move acceptance of the minutes for March 19th.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, report.
So should I wait to sign this one then?
Yes.
Change it?
Yes.
Sorry.
You want to have them sign it now?
Sign it now.
Sign it now.
Sign it.
Sign it now,
it.
sir.
Right.
May I ask, I'm sorry, who made the motion again? Mr. Ellis?
And
Okay.
Mr. Simonian seconded it.
Okay. Okay, and that vote was 3-0. Okay. And minutes of April 2nd, we have we have a motion for that?
I'll move accept April 2nd as written.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Mr. Mooney. And
Glad we got that right.
Mr., roll call, Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Simonian,
Yes.
Mr. View.
Yes.
In actuality, you might want to call roll call on the other one because we didn't actually take a vote. The March 19th.
With the correction, okay, very
With the
good, sir.
correction.
So on the March 19th, 2009, we have a motion by Mr. Ellis and a second by Mr. Simonian with the correction that staff is working on at this time.
Great.
And roll call, Mr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Simonian
Yes.
and Mr. View.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's see, we have adjourn, see staff and board decision discussion items. I just see none at this time.
I move to adjourn.
Adjournment. Thank you, sir.
Wow. That'd be a record.